I've been just kind of scrambling all week for a lot of things.
Okay, guys. So you know what? Let's keep the right time, and let's get started. So a couple of you don't know me very well. I'm Irene Kaushansky. I started out of this office, and now we've opened up our own office at Lawrence and Young. I'm still invested in this office, so I want to see all of you succeed. Absolutely. Although, of course, in Keller Williams, that's what we do. So today we're covering buyers, find and win the buyers. So I'll get into that in a couple of minutes. But I just wanted to check with you guys, how are your Ignite sessions going? I know you guys have pulled out the call portion. It's being done separately. How is that going for everybody? Who's on the calls? Nobody's on the calls. Are you guys calling?
I haven't done the groups, but I've done my network, like my calls to people, but not to these people. Yeah.
So part of the Ignite program is to make sure that you get on the phone and actually do your contacts and get out to see your open houses and write your notes. So who's doing that? Okay, you're doing? So in the last, well, I guess we're on Monday. So what did you do last week? Have you been keeping track? No, you just got your license.
Yeah, but
you have
I've
nothing
been
to keep track of.
Yeah, I've been active. Like I obviously wasn't promoting myself to the public, but in the sphere, I've been making calls, and I've been doing 5 like coffee talks with people that I think are warm.
Yeah,
and then lots of open houses, more than I'm supposed to.
Yeah, excellent. The more you know, the more you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Joe, what about you?
I did some calls last week around my listing that's coming up in a couple weeks, and followed up on a few people in my database. So I have.
Are you keeping track of your numbers?
That I'm terrible at keeping track of my numbers.
You don't even have to go fancy like doing just get a piece of paper, because I'll tell you, when you have a lot on there, it's very rewarding, and when you don't have a lot on there, it's a good kickstart for you to get back and do stuff. Julian,
Can't wait for the spring to come so we can do more door knocking again.
Great, yeah, because come spring, people are going to want to do stuff, so you want to find them now, before they're ready. What about you, Julian?
So I'm not licensed yet, but getting close to that. So I have been letting people know like my kind of next steps and talking to a lot of people about it, and I sent out emails to my network. I'm working on it, and I'm working with our like little small group and talking through that. So
You're limited before you get your license, for sure. And what about you? What are you up to these days?
Well, I'm taking a big deep breath and sort of going through everything. I'm taking this chance to, because I don't have all my things in place, and so I'm using this to make them happen.
What kind of things aren't in place?
I have a lot of names on my database, but I don't really have them, whether it's categorized or what have you, and I always sort of get overwhelmed by what seems to take other people a short amount of time. So, I don't know.
Well, to quell the overwhelm, why don't you just take like 10 at a time? And just look at those 10 instead of looking at your whole thing.
Yes.
Right? Because smaller chunk will help you get a bit more focused on that, rather than you look at something that's really, really big, and it can get overwhelming, and then you get paralyzed and you overthink things, and then you don't do anything at all. So doing a little tiny bit is better.
And I think I'm going to be focusing more on new development too, because it's going to be easier than, that's the way that things seem to be going for me, and there's quite a lot of development around here, so we'll see.
Good. Welcome.
Thank you.
Abe, I think you were in time blocking a couple of weeks ago.
I was not, unfortunately.
You're not?
No.
No, okay, well, welcome.
But I heard I missed out.
You did, of course. So we're just talking about numbers and calls. Are you part of the call group for Ignite?
I am, yes.
Excellent. How's that going?
It's going well. I'm going through the motions. Am I getting the results that I want? Not yet, but I understand it's a long-term game, so.
Yeah, for sure. What are you not getting? What do you mean not getting results?
I'm just having a hard time converting to appointments. Those leads to appointments.
That's a big part of this, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big thing. You gotta convert them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you think there's something right now that you're not getting that you can be better at?
I mean, I think all around, if there's not one thing specific, I think generally, I think it starts with discipline, to be honest. In the morning, my morning routine is kind of off. So I actually think that the way your morning starts is the way your day's gonna end. So if you supposed to wake up at 6 and you wake up at 7, you're already out to a bad start.
Right, you're already behind the 8 ball, right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you should have been a time blocker. Okay, guys, so we'll get right into the meat of the session, getting your head in the game. Your head always has to be in the game no matter which session you're at or what it is that you're doing, because your mindset will guide the rest of what you do, just like your morning, Dave, will guide the rest of your schedule. So finding buyers is simple, absolutely, because everybody wants to buy a house, right? Servicing buyers is inexpensive. It just takes you your time, really, your time and gas, and earning with buyers is quick. Yeah, absolutely. If you find somebody who is able and motivated, so they have the money and they have the willingness, absolutely. It can be quick, but it can also be a really long haul, especially in our market where there's not a lot of inventory. So it can be, but it isn't necessarily. I've taught a lot of Ignite sessions, and they have Canadianized a lot of this content, but there's still stuff that's not 100% Canadian. So I made a bunch of notes in this particular session about stuff that when you read through it, make sure you pay attention to it because it is still a little bit American. So it won't interfere with your work, but if you are following the Ignite material, just keep in mind that some of the stuff is still geared to the US as opposed to Canada. All right, converting buyer leads. Well, first you have to find buyers, then you have to qualify them, and then you have to sell them. It sounds easy, right? But with so many potential buyers out there and so many realtors, you not only have to find people who want to transact, you have to convince them that they should be working with you where the conversion comes in, right? So that's really, really important. So lead generation, number one, whether it's new development, sphere, whatever it is that you're doing, it all starts with lead gen. That's why that's such a big component of this program, and it's a component of any program that Keller Williams focuses on, whether it's BOLD or any other courses that you take, because it all starts with lead generating to find the people that you want to try and convert. If you're not lead generating for buyers or for sellers or for anything else, you're not going to have anybody to convert. So that's where it starts, absolutely. Couple of questions for you guys, especially that have been around a little bit. What's a good source of buyer leads for you? How will you find buyers?
Open houses.
Open houses are awesome. 20% of our team's business is from open houses.
Wow.
Yeah.
That seems like a great percentage.
It's now open houses and old open houses. It's in the follow-up. Yeah, absolutely. We'll get to open houses in this section, but it's the follow-up and what you do. Hi, welcome. That makes a difference as well. Anybody else?
Friends and family.
Sorry?
Friends and family.
Yes? How do you ask for business, Abe?
How do I ask for business? So I should stay away from friends and family.
It's true.
Fortunately, last year I had a few good instances where my friends called me. So I guess the way that worked out is just trying to be present on social media, letting them know that I'm in real estate. And yeah, but aside from that, it's been primarily open houses.
Mm-hmm. Good. Anybody else? Anything to add? Joe, what are you doing? What have you been doing? Because you've been at this for a little bit.
Yeah, primarily it's been door knocking.
Yeah.
Most of my, 90% of my leads are all from door knocking.
Great. How often do you do it?
Now, not so. Usually when the weather's better, at least 3-4 times a week I'm out there.
I got myself some really heavy-duty gloves. I only got them last week because I kept suffering through the winter, but my fingers get so cold. The tips of my fingers.
Maybe it's my own limiting belief, but when I do go out and it's cold, they just don't want to talk to me. They're like, it's too cold for them to be standing at the door, and they're just brushing me off.
Oh, really? They usually invite me in so I don't freeze.
Do they?
Yeah, you just gotta talk fast. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So, in your, do you guys have your manuals? I know, Abe, you don't have yours. Do the rest of you have your manuals up? Yes?
Yes.
Yeah? Okay, so page 11, at the very bottom, always ask when you're doing your lead generation, just want to see if you have any real estate plans coming up that I can help you with. That's perfect. I appreciate you giving that a thought. So rather than, if you come across someone, will you promise to let me know? I always find if you ask an open-ended question, you are more likely to get some sort of answer. So this is such a simple line. I heard it, I think it was at a Meg camp. And it's a lot less aggressive sounding, and I think we can all use it much easier. Is there anybody else you can think of that I should have a conversation with about real estate? Or else, who can you think of that I should have a conversation with about real estate? It's a little bit softer, but it really gets to the point. Because if you say, who do you know? They don't ever know anybody. Because if they knew, they would have told you already. So I find, who do you know? It just doesn't have the same result, whereas who should I have a conversation with? And then you can say, you know what, they don't have to be transacting right now. It might be later this year, it might be next year. It's always good to establish a connection so they have a resource for the future. Right. By the way, most of the things I say I would be able to repeat, so if you want to write it down, make sure you do that. Where'd my open house go? Okay, well, open houses are right here. Also in this manual, it says your role in holding an open house is not only to sell the home. If I could qualify that too, your job first is to sell that home. And don't think for a minute that the people that are going through that house aren't interviewing you every single second that they're watching you. I have actually, look, I just said 20% of our business comes from open houses. I'm really good at open houses. I'm good at meeting people. I'm good at remembering their names. I'm good at remembering what they like. I'm really good at follow-up. But my first job is to be there to sell that place, that condo, that house, wherever it is that I am. And I actually had one of the buyers that we're working with right now, they said when they were searching for the home that they're living in now, they had met one agent in particular who wasn't even trying to sell them that house. She immediately went into talking about all of her other listings. And that was 10 years ago, and this woman still remembers that. She said, like, I know when you're at an open house, she's very smart, she's marketing oriented. She said, I know when you're at an open house you want to meet people. And I know that your goal is to potentially sell them something. I don't care what it is. But why don't you try and sell me this house first? Why don't you disqualify me from this house before you try and sell me something else? So something that's that simple, and this was a seasoned agent. She just got so turned off that the agent wasn't selling that house first. So make sure you focus on that, because you never know, you never know who's there. You don't know if it's a neighbor that's a seller that's potentially interviewing you. Like when you're at an open house, you are on show. It is your store. You open up the doors and you better show some good stuff in the store, or else the people will never want to do business with you. So it could be, you never know when it's a friend of the seller's, you know, just doing recon, just seeing what you're doing in an open house. So make sure that you focus on the things that are important first, and pretend that you're always interviewing. Like when I'm done an open house, I expect, because I spent 2 hours talking and asking questions, and my brain has to remember everything, and when I don't remember, I want to put it down, you know, on notes so that I always can reference it down the road. But yeah, make sure you have that dual focus, because open houses are a great way for people to come and see you, right? You invite them, you door knock around the open house, you invite neighbors. It's a really great way to present yourself as well as the house. Yeah, for many sales reps, holding open houses is their #1 strategy. And you know, when you're new, it's a great thing to do, because when you don't have your own listings, you can open house the listings for other people. Preparation, though, is really important, or the holding an open house, preparation is important. You want to do your marketing. So if you are holding your own listing open, obviously you want to have flyers out beforehand. If you're door knocking, you want to door knock beforehand. Do you know what I found, Joe, that's really worked for us? we always, and it's funny, you have this belief and it gets ingrained in you and then you're stuck in it. So for Robin and I both, like it's been -20 and we're like, oh, it's too cold to go door knocking. And then I got this bright idea, like it's so simple, and then you like, I can't believe I didn't think of this before. You don't have to be out for an hour. You know what, you can be out for 20 minutes. Go warm up, I put my hands on my seat warmers, I warm up my hands, and I go around the block and I do another 20 minutes. Because you can do 20, 15, 20 minutes, right? You can do that. So again, it's just changing things a little bit. Because yeah, like if it's 20 below with the wind chill, you don't want to be out there for an hour. And
you get invited in a lot?
Well, yeah. Yeah, but you gotta watch it. You want to be like coming in and having a glass of wine. I can't remember who it was. It might have even been somebody in this office, or not. It was somebody who said, I have to stop door knocking because people always, because he's Italian and he goes in an Italian neighborhood, and he said that by the time I'm done, I'm drunk because everybody invites me in for wine. I said to him, why don't you just say no?
Can't do it.
Right? Like, by the third house, you're going to forget what the first one was talking about, right? Connecting with visitors and asking for their contact info. Who else does open houses other than Randall? Anne, are you doing any open houses?
I haven't been.
No. Sorry, what's your name in the back?
Karen,
Karen. Do you do open houses?
no, I haven't.
You
Not yet.
going to?
Yes, this is like my 3rd week, so.
What's that?
It's my 3rd week here,
Oh,
so
welcome,
I'm just starting. Yes.
That's great. Got so many fresh new ones in here. Open Home Pro, free app. They have it for Android. It is better on Apple. It's a better version of the app. The free version is fine. You don't need to get the paid version. You have your little iPad. People sign in on it. You're more likely to get accurate information from them, and they're more likely to fill it out because something about just coming in and doing that as opposed to this really works. But getting contact info from people at an open house is critical because if you don't have that, you have no way of following up with them. So in the Ignite Toolkit, has everybody gone on my KW? I guess, Jillian, you wouldn't have yet. But everybody that's got a KW account, have you gone on and checked out the toolkit? Yeah, there's some great stuff in there. Do you know where the toolkit is?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay. It's at the bottom of all of the materials. Okay, so let's, not there yet. Let's watch this video. This video is on KW Connect, and it is on finding the motivated. So I actually thought we set this up before, but we didn't. Oops. Give me a moment. Okay, I will get that. Sorry, guys. If I can't find it, it is on KW Connect. It's Jennifer Powell talking about finding motivated buyers.
Isn't there a link in your manual thing?
There should be.
I mean, in the actual chapter itself?
Is it a live link? Might be. I just went right to the video rather than
Yeah.
having it in here. But you know what? It might be actually might be a live link. Let me check on that end. Thank you. Should be right here. Let's see. No. Unfortunately not.
Oh, it's not, no.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Okay, the video's there. It's 2 minutes. You can just find it. It's about finding motivated buyers. This is what I get for being on somebody else's computer. I should have just set mine up. There we go.
What was that app that you mentioned? Just
It's a free download. Okay, oh, Danielle, can you help me? I got off the screen and I can't get it back now. Have you guys pulled up the videos from KW Connect? Okay. All right. I did, but it's okay. We'll get through that. I need the presentation. Slideshow.
Yes, review the slideshow. Program slideshow.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. Researching. So this is really important because even when you're new, potential clients expect you to know more than they do. And considering how much information there is out there right now for people to educate themselves with, you need to make sure that you know more than they do about just about everything. So you need to know your market stats. You need to know what's going on with interest rates. You really need to be up on everything that's going on, which of course is difficult because there's so much stuff going on all the time. But if you're going to be working in a specific neighborhood, Randall, you've got your people now looking, Junction area. So it's really important to keep up on your new listings and your sold listings especially. Because in this market, we've got a ton of stuff that's still selling over asking, and we've got a ton of stuff that's sitting on the market unsold. So you need to know what's what and make sure you understand everything. But you should also have some objection handlers. And you're going to hear this a lot. What would be available in my price range? Or I can't afford where I want to be. I think I'm going to wait. I don't think I can afford to buy something. So if somebody said to you, I have I don't know what I can afford to buy. What could I possibly afford to buy on my salary? What would your response be?
I would say, well, have you had a chance to sit down with a bank or a mortgage lender?
Great. Perfect. Yeah, that's perfect. You need to make sure that they can qualify. What's available in my price range? As if you're supposed to know what their price range is and where they want to be. So Joe, what would you say to that?
Have you already gone to the lender? First, that's the first step, right?
Okay.
Have you gone to the lender?
Yeah,
Have you spoken to someone about it?
Yeah, so they pre-qualified me for a $700,000 mortgage.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like we should get together and I can show you some.
That's perfect. Close for the appointment.
That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your whole point with talking to somebody is you want to have them come into the office. Come into the office. You always want to make sure that people commit to meeting with you before you take them out and show them anything, right? And if that's too fast, if they say, whoa, have more of a chat with them about it. Okay, so if it's a $700,000 mortgage, have you figured out, and this is also a nicer, softer way of asking them how much money they have. How much of your savings do you want to put towards a down payment, right? Because then you're assuming that they have money and you're not saying, well, what do you got? How much of your savings do you want to put down? And if they say, well, I don't have any, okay, of course, that's a different kind of conversation, right?
If they say that they're going to buy cash, would you ask them for a proof of funds?
Yeah, that's a bit of a tougher one because you do want to make sure that they actually have the cash.
Yeah.
I would say, why do you want to do that considering how low interest rates are and how low borrowing costs are, and see if you can get some more information from them.
Okay.
Usually when people say cash, they don't mean cash, but I personally have not had a case where somebody brings, money in a bag, but I have heard of it actually happening. So sometimes when they say cash, they mean like cash, and you can't do that, right? Like anything more than $10,000 you have to report, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a bit of a bigger discussion,
Yeah.
and it's gonna depend on the price point. That's why when you have your buyer consultation, you have to be able to ask them a lot more pointed questions to figure out where's the money coming from? Is it a gift? Is it coming from overseas? Who else is involved in the decisions? Like there's so much to that. You'll very rarely come across that, and usually when you do, it's somebody trying to get money out of whatever country they're trying to get out of,
Yeah.
which, brings its own set of challenges. Kara, did you want to ask me? No?
So one more question.
Yeah.
So I had this incident actually happened this past weekend. So this person from the United States, his girlfriend lives in Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
So he wants to come here and he's looking to buy a property. So he's not going to be in Toronto until 2 weeks from now.
Okay.
So he's asking, he wants me to set him up on a property search. Now, obviously, it's a lead, it's nothing more than that. But would you start setting him up
Sure,
early on,
absolutely.
before they even come in and meet?
Yeah, here's what, I also use that at open houses. I use that as a hook.
Yeah.
Right now there's a lot of services that do that, so it's not as effective as it used to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, would you like me to send you some listings that fall into your geographical boundary and in your price point? Yeah, so if he's not gonna be here for a while, you can say, okay, well, based on, have a little mini buyer consultation on the phone.
Yeah.
Okay, does he know Toronto?
His girlfriend lives here.
Okay, so, have you figured out where you wanna be? Give me some boundaries for geography.
Yeah.
Like if he says all of the city, that's gonna be pretty crazy,
Totally what you said.
right? Okay, so W6, W7, W8,
Yeah.
right? So set them up, do a price point, or a price range, and then say, okay, so I'm gonna do this for now, so that you have a sense of what's coming up. And then when you get here, we will sit down and have a proper buyer consultation. Of course, if you see something in your emails that is really of interest to you, let me know and I'll take the girlfriend out, right? And I can show it to her, so we start building a little bit of rapport. You don't want to be spending a lot of time with people that aren't qualified or motivated or loyal, but you also may have to put a little bit of work in to help them understand that you're working for them.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. They can get information anywhere,
Yeah.
right? And if you give it to them in a nice package, and it's coming to them with your email and your name, right? So there's extra recognition there as well. So on page 15, knowing the terms, so list to sales price ratio, days on market, average days on market, buyer notification system, and IDX. Does everybody know all of those? Joe, what's the list price to sale price ratio?
What it was listed for, what it sold for, how much more did it sell for over the list price, or how much less?
How much less, yeah. We can say that now, some stuff is selling for less, right? Days on market?
How many days has been on market?
So that's one of the first things that I noticed here is they do use pending status in the material, and we don't have pending, we have conditional. The process for all sales in the U.S., although it's different for from one state to the other, it's very different from ours. We have, you buy a house today, you might have a 3 to 5 day conditional period, and then when it's sold, it's sold. In the U.S., for the majority of states, if you come to an agreement today, it's essentially conditional right up until closing. And much like we don't disclose our sale prices while it's conditional, they don't disclose anything while it's pending, which makes it that much harder to look at comps, because if something's pending, you don't really know what it's sold for, because for us it would still be conditional. We're just very fortunate, it's a much shorter process over there, so anytime you see pending in any of the materials, that's the equivalent of our conditional. Buyer instant notification system, are you guys familiar with that in TREP? Have you seen that? No? There is a section in the buyer registry, and you can set it up, it's like a prospect match exponential. You can set it up for hourly notifications.
Or collaborate.
I think Collaborate does something similar, but Yeah, I haven't used Collab. I know it's a pretty good system. I think it is more instant there as well. But in the buyer registry, once you have a buyer agreement signed, you can put them in the registry and you can select hourly notification, and then you both get notified. So you can see, hey, there's a listing for Anne that's just come up.
Do you put your buyers in the registry? And almost,
The only time I put them in the registry is when they want hourly notification. Some people are just nuts in that respect. They want everything instantly. I had one client say, if you sent me anything more than I set her up on 6 hours. She said anything more than that, I'd never get any work done. Yeah. So market stats, I think this is where we were. You need to know, in addition to what's selling and what the neighborhoods are, you need to know what the list to sales price ratio is in different neighborhoods. Toronto's so big, you need to figure out what the different areas are doing and how their prices are migrating. Number of homes on the market at different price ranges. We're still suffering from a lack of inventory, right? So you need to be able to talk to people intelligently about what might be available in different neighborhoods and different price pockets. And price trends, that's a little tricky because right now especially we're in a market that doesn't really follow any sort of rules. And when you have somebody that thinks they know more than you do and they're telling you what's happened with the market, you have to remind them that averages are not specific to each individual neighborhood, right? When people just read the media and they don't follow all the stats separately for each neighborhood, it can really give them a skewed view. I love it when people that buy one house every 5 years try to school me on what the market is doing. I always find that to be a lot of fun. Oh, this is also, when you're talking about neighborhoods, it's really important for you to know the schools. I know public schools like the back of my hand, and now especially more in Etobicoke, there's so many people that are looking for a Catholic school that I'm not brushed up on my Catholic catchments. And that's really, really important. If that's not something that you're doing now, make sure that you're on top of it, because when you're dealing with families with children, they want to be in specific schools, and it's not your job to tell them which school to go to, but you need to be able to know what's a better school versus one that's not. Try and be non-judgmental about it. Try and get research from places other than just the EQAO scores in the Fraser Institute. But that's really, really critical, especially if somebody lives in a neighborhood that they don't consider to be a good school district and they don't want to move too far out of area, then you need to know where they would need to move to get into a better district. Some families will already know and they'll tell you, which is great, but if they don't, and if they don't really think about schools, like maybe they either don't have children yet, or their children are very, very young and they're not as focused on that, you got to make sure that you bring that up for them so that they understand. Because sometimes being on one side of the street versus the other is going to be a very different school district and they might not know that. Joe?
So aside from the Fraser Institute, how else do you research schools?
Well, the EQAO scores on the TDSB site help. It's not the only marker, because some schools actually teach to the EQAO test, which of course doesn't give you any indication on how the rest of the caliber of the education at that school is, but at least it gives you an idea. Because if you look and you see like, 50% or less of the kids are performing at provincial standard, that's not awesome, all right? And you're looking at schools that are 70, 80, 90% of the kids are performing at that level. That's going to give you a better indicator of the education there. Julie?
Does the TDSB website also give you kind of cutoffs of streets where?
It does, yeah. Yeah, so what we did a while ago is when the new Stratus came out, we actually saved maps because you can draw, right? Where before we were limited to east, west, north, south. We had to have it on a square or a rectangle grid. Now you can draw in TREP. So we actually drew the catchments for the majority of the public schools. Public and or elementary and middle. High schools is not as stringent because you can go out of area more often than not. But yeah, and you have to keep checking because they change, right? They change the cutoffs. like in the C10 district, if you're west of a particular house number, you're in Eglinton Public School, and then east of is Maurice Cody, which is the destination school for that neighborhood. So you might live at 250 and be at Eglinton, and 252 and you're in Maurice Cody. And if people are focused on the Maurice Cody school, they're not going to want to go to Eglinton. So that's just like one example. You really have to make sure that you know everything.
And then you're kind of saying before, like you should know, other than QAO scores, you should have a better idea. Is that just through talking to people in the community then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reputation, talking to parents, and it's all subjective.
Yeah.
Right. It really is. When our daughter was 6, I don't remember. When she was old enough to change schools, we actually moved out of the New Toronto neighborhood that we lived in because the school that we were right across the street from was not a grade school. And we moved into a better catchment, and we walked down to that school, and it was old and dilapidated, and there was no daycare there, and our son was just born, and we kept her in the old school, and then our son went down there as well, because the scores weren't great, but the teachers were awesome. It was a newly constructed school, it had air conditioning, right? Yeah. No joke, right? And the daycare that was there was amazing. So we moved up into this great school district, and then we kept driving our kids down to the old school.
So then would you go visit the schools yourself or just kind of encourage your?
I think it's always good for you to,
Yeah.
just so you know,
Yeah.
and then let them make, like you always have to let people make their own decisions.
Yeah.
Right? And don't be too militant in what your job is to present the facts. Maybe give a little bit of opinion and then let them make their own decisions. Again, page 17, they reference title companies. We don't have title companies. So it's a very different closing process. Actually, when we go through closing, do you guys want me to put the manual up here rather than the PowerPoints? Yes?
I have the manual, but
Yes, no?
I got my man.
Okay, all right.
yeah.
Julie, do you have your manual?
I have in front of me, yeah.
Okay.
I agree, these slides are pretty.
They're pretty useless, right? Yeah. Okay. Know the school districts inside and out. Yeah, that's really, really important. Is anybody farming here? How did you set up your farm?
Blind shot, no. It's, I wanted something that's not too close to home, but close to home.
Okay.
But I looked at turnover rates. Was looking for something that has the demographic that I'm willing to work with, and wanted to choose 1,000 homes, something that's manageable that I could go and visit them
Right.
3-4 times a year.
Great. And what school district is the farm in?
It's in Michael Power.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Great, excellent. And are you door knocking?
I am going.
Excellent.
Not as consistently as I should be, but I haven't door knocked. Honestly, I haven't door knocked at all this year. I've been more on the phones.
Right. Yeah, get out, especially if you have a farm, you gotta get out and meet the people. Because everybody farms, everybody mails and mails and mails and mails and mails, and very few people will actually go to the door.
Yeah.
Randall, Jillian, do you know what geographic farming is?
Yes. I haven't
Tell me.
started yet.
Okay,
but,
tell me what your knowledge of it is. What is it?
Well, it's districts that I want to look for leads in or develop insider knowledge about, and then either use for my buying or selling clients as a home base for where I'm going to operate. But I'm planning on going out and door knocking the neighborhoods that I've kind of selected. Mostly, I haven't done quite as much data, but I like the price points there, I like the age of the homes. I like the fact that the age of those current homeowners is up there.
Yeah.
So like things like that. I've selected a couple areas that I know.
Jillian, it's picking a geographic area with some set boundaries that you will mail, and then go to. And the reason you want to go is because there's so much promotion and so much marketing from other realtors, you need to make sure that you stand out. And when you do your research, find an area that's not truly dominated by one agent. And truly means like the actual number. Sometimes agents do a lot of flyers and a lot of advertising, but they don't actually have any market share. So you need to do your research. And sometimes what we believe is something, when you go and do your research, that's why statistics are so important. You really need to make sure you have the hard facts and the numbers to support whatever it is that you're thinking. Sorry, Abe, you were gonna say something?
So do you farm as a?
Yes. Yeah.
How big is your farm?
Our farm is 3,700 homes. We had 2,600 and we added 1,000. I'm thinking of pulling back now to the 2,600 because I haven't ever hit every single house in it, door knocking, once a year. So my goal is to do that. So I actually have a map that I have different color highlighters for the seasons, so winter, spring, summer, fall, and I highlight the streets that I hit in a particular season. And then the next year, I look to see what I may have missed and start with that. Because it's big. It's a big chunk.
Could you maybe break that down a little bit for me? So you have your area, and then there's the two fronts. You're doing a direct mailer of some sort,
Yes.
and you're doing door knocking and door calling.
Yes.
So what's the pattern look like? You're kind of hitting them with a 8x8 or 33 touch kind of campaign or something, and then you're also getting out there Monday, Wednesday, Friday every week for 3 hours. How does that kind of break down for you?
That's roughly it.
Right.
Yes. We do flyers. We started with one a month. So we
Okay.
started. Now this was in
To the
2011.
whole.
To the whole thing.
Right.
Yeah, so after the third one, I started door knocking and we branded yard bags.
Oh, that's a great
So
idea.
that was a really big, because until we got listings, nobody knew who we were.
Sure.
So I would come to
That's a
the
great
house. It's a great idea. People use them and they say, oh, I'm not selling my house. It's okay, I don't need you to sell your house.
Right.
I
Just
just
slip
want to
this
give you
out
this
front.
bag, compliments of our team. Why are you giving me this for free? Because I'm out here looking for people who might want to move, and if you're not moving, maybe you'll put in a good word for me with one of your neighbors.
Right.
Like, oh, and then we stretch out.
Sure.
And I always, if they're not moving, always ask who else do you know in the neighborhood that might move, or who should move. That's also good. That's how I got my first listing. Yeah, the lady on the porch said, well, that's kind of sad. And she pointed to the house that was kitty corner from her, and she said, the son moved in to take care of the parents, and the son died first. And then the parents died. So I looked up the surviving spouse or sibling, found her in Cambridge, tracked her down, got an appointment because she's in Cambridge, she doesn't know anybody here. You have to be sensitive. It's like, hey, I hear your family died, want to sell? Right? You need to be a little bit sensitive to something like that. But yeah, neighbors will tell you a lot. If you're nice and you come from contribution and you're not there going, so,
Right.
right? Yeah.
Fantastic.
So I started that 3 months in, and people were saying to me, oh, I get your flyers all the time. Really? The 3 that you got? And then we upped it to twice a month for a bit to get some extra coverage. Then we pulled back, and now we're back to twice a month.
Right.
So it's an investment, like it's $800 each time between, because we don't have our flyer guys won't go out there, so we have to do Canada Post, which I really don't like, because we're slaves to their schedule.
That's the bulk mailing.
That's the bulk mail. Yeah, so it gets delivered with everybody else.
Right. May I ask another level? So they say that that type of approach with those mailers is like a 6 to 9 month turnaround for like an actual.
Unless you door knock and you get your first listing in 3 months,
Right.
because you're talking to the neighbors.
Right.
And it's not 6 to 9 months, it'd be like 12 to 18 months.
Okay.
And I think right now it's even less than that, because so few people will actually just call on the flyer,
More than that, I mean, more than 12 to 18 months?
if at all.
Yeah. If,
Because there's so many people that are farming and just doing flyers and flyers and flyers. Yeah,
It's so true.
if you're not standing out somehow, if you're not meeting those people face to face and having them, and then turning them from the not Mets into the Mets database. So what we do, we have that, so it's not 12 direct, it's like 24 direct,
Sure.
right? So we do that, and then I have a group of, I think about 420 Mets. So either I door knock them, and they might be moving, I've door knocked them and they're not moving, but they're nice people and they've committed to referring us. Or I've met them at open houses, or maybe like a community event, because we're involved in with the schools as well. So the big group is almost 4,000. The MEC group is smaller than that. And the MEC groups I will have emails for, so they'll get copies of our listings or invitations to the skating party or something like that, right? You start with the big, and then by door knocking, meet as many as you can and put them in the database that you stay in touch with more frequently.
Yes. So I get, I live over by Dundas and Ossington, and I get, I don't know, every week, maybe 20 flyers from different real estate agents. And in the whole time I've owned the house, 2012, I've only had one door knocker.
That's usually the case.
That's a remarkable
Yep.
percentage for like week in and week out flyer, but then to never follow up on it.
Most agents don't.
Is that the difference?
Yes, absolutely.
It seems
That's
like
why,
that's the
that's
difference.
why they say it's a 12 to 18 month return.
Right.
But I think right now, with the number of realtors that we have and the number that are only doing marketing and very little prospecting, I think it's more than that. If ever, like you get 20 flyers a week. We actually did a test. We saved them all for a week and put them all out, and it was like at the beginning of a month, and we looked at their averages, and everybody was different because they all use a service.
Right.
Right? So everything said something different. It was hysterical. Like how are you as a homeowner supposed to trust the information that you're getting if all of the information is completely different? And everybody says they're the market expert, right? And you also, like, you get intel when you go to the door. Like you figure out when people are getting divorced, when people are dying, right? And if you're there and you're nice and you're polite and you're respectful, like not everybody moves because it's a happy situation, right? Yeah, and if you're going through a divorce, it's unlikely that you're going to pick up a flyer. Jillian, we're going to say something?
I was just gonna say, I almost think it works negatively, because I know quite a few people don't like to get junk mail anymore in there, and so getting them, they almost look at the face being like, oh, this person.
Another one, yeah.
So, yeah, just
Yeah,
my 2 cents.
it's true. But then when I go to the door, it's like, oh, you're the one of those flyers. Yeah, this is me in real life. Oh, you look much better in real life than your photograph. I love that. I love it when the old ladies tell me that I look better than my photograph. It's very cute.
Thank you.
Anytime. Farming is another 20% of our business. So we have only 3 pillars really. So it's repeated referral, farming and open houses, and everything else is like incidental. So you know we might get an internet sale or 2, bless you. It's really like those are our 3. And if it's a senior or a luxury home, it'll either be farming or door knocking or referral. That's usually what happens.
You door knock luxury homes?
I have. Right now, we're really focused on our farm. We're fortunate that there are some $2 million properties in the farm. We picked it because of the variety of price ranges, and then we moved into it, which is helpful. I don't think you have to live in your farm, but I think it's helpful if you do, even if you're close, because then you're going to the LCBO, and to the pet store, to the grocery store, and you're in the school, so you're sort of around more, which is really helpful as well. I make the best contacts at the LCBO. Oh, hi! You again. Yeah, and Loblaws, and no frills, right? Because it's nice, I mean, you just kind of show a difference, like you're human. Right, you're a human first before you're a salesperson, right? So it's nice to do that. It's nice to have that little bit of extra help. Page 18 again, they're referencing title company. So anywhere you see a title company, that's not us. We have attorneys, we have lawyers. Okay, qualifying. So you always want to have somebody, a buyer, come in for a buyer consultation. But before that, you do need to qualify them. Are they actual buyers? Going back to everybody wants to buy a home, but are these people going to qualify for what they want? And are they willing to actually spend the money and get into something? And then get the appointment. If you don't get them in for an appointment, they're more likely to waste your time, right? So why qualify first? What do you find out if you qualify and have an appointment? You just had one, Randall. Tell me, was this somebody that you knew or somebody that,
Very closely.
okay. So what did you do to take them from friend to client?
Like actually today or just over the last?
No, yeah, over the last little while.
Yeah, just kind of was talking to them about what I was learning and knowing and how I was developing into a real estate agent. Yeah, and just kind of earned their trust in that way.
Great. And what did you do today at the appointment?
Well, I sent them the, Adrian had shared with me like a buyer's package to kind of get them focused in essence. Like this isn't just a coffee with Randy. It's like a business meeting about you buying your next home.
Right.
And then I just asked them to bring any questions that jumped out at them from that material. So I wanted them to read it.
Right.
So I said, make some questions, then I'll incorporate that into my spiel. And then, just kind of talk them through the points that were important, and I did focus heavily on, in a nice way, the financing side. And the importance of getting pre-qualified, the importance of having the down payment in an account for a certain amount of days, and for incidentals, closing costs and renovation costs.
Right. Yeah, there's actually, I'll go over a little section here on closing costs that I want to bring your attention to as well. So taking a step back, maybe somebody that you don't know, somebody that sees a sign or calls you from an online ad or from an online listing, whatever it is. I love what they say here. This is really good if you want to asterisk that's on page 19. Buyers who are calling on properties often have two goals. First is eliminate the property. They want to see if it meets their needs, and if not, they want to strike it off their list completely. Eliminate you, right? Until they're ready, they don't need a salesperson. It's hard enough to convince them they need a good salesperson when they're actually ready, but before that, it's even harder. So, how do you figure out how you're going to take them from those elimination goals and turn them into something for yourself? You need the scripts, and you need to be able to, going back to converting. You need to know what you're going to say when you have somebody on the phone or via email, right? That's the worst. You get an email address and no phone number, so you have to figure out what are you going to ask and how are you going to structure your questions so that they do feel that they need you, so they do want to engage you in a conversation. We're not even talking about an appointment yet. We're just talking about getting them into a relationship with you. So getting to qualifying, you need to know price, the lending criteria, motivation. This is really important too. Last thing you want is a tire-kicking buyer, right? If they just want to run around and look at houses and not ever buy any, you can send them to open houses, right? Your time is more valuable than that. It's better for you to be spending your time lead generating to find motivated buyers than working with non-motivated buyers. Location wants and needs. I'm actually hoping that we can get that video up because the wants and needs video in KW Connect is actually quite good. It goes several layers deep, not just asking the question, but asking for more details on that. Timeline, right? You want to be working with people who want to buy right now. You might put a bit more research into them and give them a little bit of information before they're ready, like your person that hasn't arrived. But if somebody wants to buy in a year, you're not driving them around right now. You're staying in touch with them, you've got your 33 Touch program, you maybe call them every couple of months, but if they're truly not ready, like if you've helped them get pre-qualified or not, and they're truly not ready, then don't drive them around. Finances and availability, right? You want to make sure that they're going to be available to go out and actually look at stuff. This section here, page 21 and 22, is really, really good for when you're talking on the phone to somebody. And this is before you're taking an appointment. You want to try and qualify somebody on the phone without getting overly aggressive with them. Now, I can tell you that the top part here, where it asks for the children's names, don't do that. It's really invasive. You're going to really turn people off. At our bio consultation, I actually have a section for kids and their birthdays, but that's after we've built up some rapport and we know that we have a basis of working together. You ask somebody for their children's names and birthdays on the first phone call, they'll probably hang up on you. But this is really, some version of this is really good to have, because if you're on the phone and you don't have something that you're referring to, you're gonna forget to ask a lot of these questions. And a couple of them are really good. Like number 9, is there anyone else who's involved in your home buying decision? That goes for a spouse, but that goes for parents or somebody else that's advising them. If they're not going to be at the appointment with you, I mean, the 35-year-old isn't going to bring their parents with them to a buyer consultation. But if you know that they're in the background and their opinion matters, that's good for you to know up front, because you might want to invite them on showings. You might want to involve them more in the process. If they are going to the bank of mom and dad are going to want to know what they're buying. And if you've shown somebody 20 homes and they found one, and then they bring mom and dad haven't seen the 19 that they wrote off. And mom and dad are, if they're not knowledgeable, they're going to look and go, oh, you're buying this crap, right? Because they don't have the benefit of having seen everything else. So if there is somebody else that's involved, you want to know that up front and keep reiterating that and making sure that they don't come in and be the deal killer. That was the name I was looking for, the deal killer, right? And then it's closing for an appointment. I'd love to help you buy a home. In order, there's a little bit of repetition here, so just get the gist of this. In order to help you, all we need to do is set an appointment with all of the decision makers, and I can help you get what you want in the time you want, and then give them some options. Are you able to meet tomorrow at 4, or would Thursday at 6 be better? Right? Always give people the option. Some of them won't book the appointment right then and there, but if you don't do this, it would be very unlikely. Like if somebody says, oh yeah, I really, really want to meet with you, it's rare, right? Usually you have to be the one that keeps asking and pulling it out of them, and then when they do finally agree, then you have a motivated buyer.
So it's not the first call that you usually get the appointment?
I'm sorry?
So if whatever correctly, it's not the first call that you get the appointment?
No. If you do, that is bonus.
Yeah.
If you find somebody, if somebody calls from an online listing or ad or a sign call and they're actually ready to come in for an appointment, oh baby, that's like jackpot. Very rarely happens. Just like door knocking, very rarely will you find somebody that says, oh, actually I was thinking about selling. Yeah, why don't you come tomorrow? Let's list the house. Yeah, it doesn't happen. Usually, like if somebody's at that stage, they already have somebody that's helping them.
Yeah.
So it's the finding them and then staying in touch with them until they're ready, right? If you think that they're ready to do something sooner, you want to stay in touch with them more regularly, like every week. If they're not ready, you don't want to call them every week because then you're going to turn them off. So you want to have a consistent follow-up system based on the level of urgency that they've given you and based on what you decide from your questions. Because sometimes they say something, they think they're being honest with you, but sometimes they don't know, right? And you can ask them questions to either move them up in their motivation or move them back. Maybe they say, oh, I'm ready to buy right now, and you ask a bunch of questions, and then you go, oh no, you're not, right? So it's up to you to know the right questions to ask, to either bring them in sooner or put them off until later. There's a lot to think about. Rating the buyer, so A, B, or C buyers, the ability and level of motivation are 2 main points that they're looking for. So this is actually, this is a good breakdown. So A buyers, they're able, ready, and willing to purchase. They will be under contract in a matter of weeks. When they say under contract, they mean they're going to find a place that they like and offer on it and have it accepted. In our market, it could be months, right? It really depends on where they're looking and what the inventory is there. B buyers, ready and willing but not able right now. So something else has to happen first. They have to sell their house. They wait for a lease to expire. We don't necessarily have to worry about those things too much. Sometimes tenants can get out earlier. They may be getting some money from wherever that they're not ready to do something yet. C buyers, no immediate need. They may have a very exacting situation. If they can sell their property for a specific price, they'll buy something else for a specific price. So those are the maybes, right? Well, if I get the right price for my house,
well, why don't we talk about your house first then? Right? Because I can't help you find something unless I know what your situation is and what it is you're trying to achieve with your house, and then you could turn that into a listing appointment, right? Because sometimes people have a way overinflated idea of what their home is worth, and sometimes they underestimate, right? You can say, well, you know, if you want $850 for your house, I think your house is worth $950, right? Based on what things are selling for. So yeah, why don't we sell this and help you find something else?
This question came up in a previous session, but would you buy or would you sell first?
There is not one answer for that. It depends on what they're selling, and if they're, you know, if they're going out of a condo into a house, if they're going out of a bigger house into a smaller house, like, it is not a straight answer. And even for two identical situations, you might have different answers. So if somebody is young, no kids, maybe a dog, I think selling first and looking is simpler, because if they don't find something that they want, they can be more mobile and they can find temporary accommodations, and they know exactly what they're working with when they sell their place. If it's a family, or if it's an older couple that's downsizing, if they sell first and don't have a backup plan in case they don't find something, then it's a lot more cumbersome. So you have, you know, 3 kids and 2 cats and a dog. Actually, with somebody last week, she has 3 kids, 5 dogs, and 2 cats. Right? They're definitely buying first. But you don't want to put them in a position where it might be a bad financial situation. So if they have a really strange house, or if it's not something that will sell very quickly, you have to be conscious of that, because you don't want them buying and then being stuck with the existing house. So it's a lot of juggling. Yeah, and every situation is different. And everybody wants you to give them an answer, and you can't. Right? Like I've had families say, you know what, I just want to sell, and if I have to, you know, put the kids up in an Airbnb, I'll do it. Whereas others, like, I don't care, I am not moving twice ever. Like, find me a place to go. If I get a little bit less from my house, I don't care. Depends on their financial state too, right? Like if they're really, really strapped, you don't want to put them in a position where they might get $10,000 or $20,000 less for the house, right? Like it's just so situational. We talked about pre-qualification. Okay, so I'm just gonna pass on the PowerPoint. I don't even know where we are over there. Getting the appointment. So you figured out that they're willing and they've been pre-qualified. You do want to get an appointment. For most places, well, most people, I would not advise that you meet them anywhere other than the office, because you want to be safe. If they just want to, if they insist on seeing just your listing or whatever it is, whether or not you do that will be dependent on your situation. Sometimes asking more questions on the phone will determine whether or not you're actually going to go show that house. Be happy to show you that house. Let me tell you a little bit more about it. Let's see if it'll work for you. Okay? It's a 3-bedroom with 1 bath. Is that something that will work for you, or do you want more than that? And just ask, keep asking, because it might turn out that you're not going to show them that house. It might not be suitable for them. But then it gives you the opportunity to say, well, now that I know a little bit more about what you want, I have some ideas about other places that you can see. Why don't we sit down and have a 20-minute discussion about what you're looking for and see if I can find you something that's right. All right? And motivated people, they will meet with you. And if they won't meet with you right away, you can stay in touch with them and show them the value of what you bring to the table. And maybe through follow-up and consistency, you can get them to come in. But if somebody won't ever come in, they're just not motivated. Either that, or they don't want to commit to an agent, and then you don't want them anyway. Right?
Or maybe they have some other agent that they're thinking of working with.
Exactly.
But would you not try to encourage a second opinion at least?
Absolutely. But you can't do that unless you're trying to set up an appointment. I have an agent. Great. Is that why you're calling me? Is your agent not doing the research for you? Well, you know, I don't want to bother them. Oh, well, you know what? It's their job to find you the right house. Let me ask you this. If I found you the right house, are you still committed to working with the agent that you had? You know, test their loyalty. Because sometimes they're just telling you that they have an agent to get you off the phone. Right? So it's digging until you can actually get an appointment, or confirm that they're not going to be. You can't get that information unless you ask more questions. It's all about the questions. Great leaders ask great questions. This is something I asked her this as well. So if they do just want to see one house, and you can't sit down for a full buyer consult, maybe you can get them in for a brief buyer consultation before you actually take them to the listing. So page 25, scripted here, the property at, etc. is listed at whatever it's listed at. Let's schedule a time to see if it's right for you. Will today at 4 or Saturday at 10 be better for you? Great, let's meet at my office first, and we can go over some of the other properties that are available to see if there's anything else that we might want to put on the list. And see, like the real buyers who really do want to buy a house, they'll follow your lead. You give them something, you give them an option that's reasonable. Okay? And page 26, I've had people that want to meet at coffee shops, or they want to meet at their house, or they want to meet here, they want to meet there. Setting an appointment at the office, it increases your level of professionalism. And it just shows them that you are the one who's going to be in control. If you start your relationship off by letting them have the control, that's how it's, like your morning, right? That's how it's going to go for the rest of the time. If you don't have to be militant, but if you have them work into your schedule, and if you make them jump through your hoops, and they're going to jump through your hoops, they will be good buyers. Whereas if they want everything on their terms, then that might not work for you. Now, I'll make an exception if they have little kids at home. I'll come to their house, I'll bring my laptop. Or, if it's elderly people or something like that. I will make exceptions. If it's somebody who's like a very, very busy professional, will I come to see them? Yeah, maybe. Maybe I'll come and see them in their office. But those are exceptions. The rule is you come and see us in our office. We have our home office in the West End, we have our Junction office, we have our East End office in the Beach, and we have our office at King and Bathurst. Which location will work best for you, right? Because you can go to Don Mills, you can go wherever, right? You want to have them come to you because it's more convenient, but you also want to be flexible. You want to be providing the service, you want to show them that there's value in working with you. Okay, so buyer consultations. Very, very important. Who uses a buyer package? Randy? You said, yeah, you had one. We have a buyer package that we always send out, either hard copy or if the appointment's very fast. Like if we're doing something, if we're talking today, the appointment is tomorrow, I'll send out an email version. Gene Rivers from Tallahassee, Florida. He has a service that will deliver a hard copy pre-consultation package within a half hour of his phone call. Yeah, I want to be like that when I grow up. Right? You guys are welcome to take a look at this. Try not to memorize it because it's all going to be changed. It's really long and we are working on making it more succinct. There's a lot of pages. Some people will read the whole thing, but a lot won't. But you get the idea. We talk about us, a little bit of our history, a bit of about our philosophy, our team, who pays the buyer broker, how it works, what we can help with, whether it's new construction, for sale by owners, exclusive listings that aren't listed on the open market. So we talk about all of that. We help them understand what we bring to the table over and above showing them listings. And actually this is something that they talk about here. There's a whole bunch of really, really great scripts. Pages 42 and 42 through 44. In fact, these are so good that I told my team I was going to reread these after I was done this session, because there's some really good stuff here on exclusivity. Why should you work with one agent? Hopefully it's me, but if it's not me, what's the importance of working with one agent? By the time you get to that point, you should have shown them enough value for them to want to work with you. If they aren't willing to do that, then either you haven't shown them why they should, or they don't want to give anybody an exclusive commitment. So there's some really good verbiage here on helping them understand
why that's important. So we send that package out ahead of time, and we like to get a few parameters from people, just as far as general timeline, because again, if somebody's buying in a year, we're not going to meet with them right now. So general timeline, find out if they have an idea of where they want to be geographically, and then of course find out if they've been pre-qualified, because that's really, really important. We'll meet with people who have not been pre-qualified, as long as they get pre-qualified right away. I mean, sometimes maybe they haven't had a chance to. So we'll talk about the importance of the pre-qualification, and pre-approval too. We want to make sure that something's in writing.
So somebody's incredibly motivated, you would meet with them even if they're not pre-qualified, just to kind of
Sure.
get that connection
Yeah.
going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we'll even start, looking at a few places, but they have to do that. I mean, we're not, we're
Yeah,
certainly
that's a
not
big
waiting.
part.
And, what's that?
They have to get that that's a big part of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're certainly not putting in any offers without a pre-approval in place. All right, because I don't want to be the buyer's agent who has to say to the listing agent, oh, they haven't gone to the bank yet. Right? You have enough of those. Certainly don't want that. Right? Yeah. So guide to buying your home. There's a lot of really great stuff here. So if you guys, whether you have your manual or not, this is all online. And there's some really good things in here. Some of the stuff you might want to send the buyers ahead of time and educate them beforehand. Some of it you might want to discuss with them at the actual buyer's meeting. And there's a word here that I want you guys to get out of your vocabulary. It's on page 30, and what you get from me. This is really great because there's some people that think they could just go and buy a house because they see a listing. Well, it's not that easy, right? If you go to the listing agent, they're not working for you. And if you just work with anybody who's in front of you, they're not going to be invested in getting you the best deal. However, so you get a knowledgeable and professional realtor who represents you, thorough consultation to determine your unique wants and needs in a home, because everybody's unique. I think that word is great, because everybody has something different. And the house that you like may not be a house that she likes, or you like, or want, or need. However, advice on making offers based on expert market evaluations so you don't overpay. Don't ever use that word. And when your clients use that word, tell them there's no overpaying. You're paying what something is worth right now. It'll never be overpaying unless the market drops. And then everybody's overpaid. So you're paying what something is worth. And if somebody says, I don't want to overpay, you can use the same verbiage, but you can use different words to get the point across to not say overpay, because that's such a negative connotation. We will show you what's sold in the area to make sure that you pay the right price. And you know what? Sometimes it's okay to pay a little bit more if you're going to be in the house for a long time, because the market's going up. If you're buying, it's a very different story. If you're buying to flip and sell, it's going to be very different than if you're going to be living there for 20, 10, even 5 years. Because 20, 10, 5 years down the road, everything's going to be different and everything's going to be going up. And some people will understand that. And some people won't. But there's just that word. I'm very big on words, and I think the words that you use are really, really important. And you can, bless you, that was the quietest sneeze ever. I think it's really important because you can get the same point across and use different words and have a very different connotation. Committed ally who will complete your purchase contract, present your offer, and negotiate on your behalf. I think the idea of negotiating cannot be underestimated, because every seller thinks they're going to get the same price with any listing agent just when their property's on the market, and every buyer thinks they're going to get the same services from an agent no matter who they are, and it's just not true. It's just not right. The negotiating that you do for your buyer is critical. It's going to make the difference between them either getting the house or not, or getting it at the right price.
May I?
Yeah, of course. This is participatory.
So negotiating is obviously a huge part of our job, but as
Yes.
new agents, how do we come up to speed quickly on that important piece on our first few forays into the negotiations. Like,
Try and sit in on as many offers as you can with other realtors, try and shadow them.
that's something we can ask of it.
Absolutely, you can ask.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Right, that makes sense.
yeah, it's what you learn through experience.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
Yeah, and you can't get the experience unless you're doing it, or you're following somebody else that is,
There's no template for that kind of stuff.
because every situation's
Yeah.
different. You know, you're looking for a win-win, you wanna make sure everybody's happy. But, I mean, obviously, if you have the buyer, they're your focus.
Mhm.
Yeah. There's a book,
Never split the difference.
I don't think that's it, but that's a good book, that is a good book. Oh yeah, don't ever split the difference. I actually have it. I'm gonna have to look it up. It's at the bottom of my pile of books on my bedstand. It was a speaker at one of the luxury homes seminars or retreats that I did a few years ago. It was all about the negotiating, all about the negotiating. There's courses on it. Suze Cummings does a good negotiating course. Might want to look into that. I can't remember if there's a specific name for it, but if you just Google Suze, S-U-Z-E, yeah, she does it fairly regularly.
CME.
Yes, yeah, I think that's it.
Yeah.
Certified negotiating expert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've taken it.
You have taken it?
Yes.
How was it?
I like the first one, but there was like CME 1, 2, and 3. Well, I'm kind of learning like I want like a speaker to like pour all they can. It was a lot of discussion based.
Mm-hmm.
That part like I didn't truly enjoy it, but it's definitely worth it. At least the first one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, so we could look into that, Randall. Assistance with any post-close issues, I think that also cannot be understated, because it's great that they close, and then what happens after? What happens if something's not working? What happens if there's a problem? What happens if there's garbage? What happens down the road? Like, you really are the trusted resource, and you have to be there for your clients after closing. It's not enough just to give them the keys and get the check, right? You gotta be there as a resource afterwards. The backing of a trusted company, Keller Williams Realty.
I mean, I don't know whether it's because I've got the older one, but here the preparation of all the data completion documents, has that been dropped from the new one?
No, and you're not prepared closing documents.
No, so you, I mean,
Thanks for that.
take it.
That's one of the things that, I read through this with my red pen. I think that might have been why I missed it. For any of you that are free next Wednesday, oh, you're probably here. Okay, so for any of you that aren't here next Wednesday and you do want to come to a closing process session, we've got James Lax. He's a really great lawyer. He's a Danforth and Pape, and he's going to be at our market center next week going through, that's all he's doing is the closing process. So you understand it, you could help your clients through it, and then have a really good basis of it for yourself. As part of my service, I will commit to helping you with your home search by organizing and scheduling homes to view based on your unique specifications. And that's really important too. When somebody says, well, why should I meet? Can't I just tell you on the phone what I want? And you can say, you know what, this is a really in-depth process. And for me to be able to really help you, I really need to know what you want and what you need. And I need to be with you in person to do that. You're spending upwards of, you know, $500,000, $750,000, million, whatever it is. Like, you kind of have a sense of it before. So isn't that worth half an hour of your time to make sure that we're looking for the right places? Personally touring homes and neighborhoods with you, one of the other really good benefits that you should be offering is once you've met with somebody and you've shown them a few homes, you should be previewing properties before you take them to them. Because then you can either nix some of them or say, this is perfect, drop everything and come now. Or in between, you know what, I don't know if you're gonna like this or not. This is what I thought, why don't you come and take a look at it? And they'll appreciate that. Because especially if you've been working with somebody for a while, you should not be taking them to any place that doesn't at least partially work for them. Because they'll get upset, like, aren't you listening? I told you at the last house that I didn't want this, and now you've taken me to the same thing. Like, aren't you listening to what I'm saying? And that's usually when you get the, I want out of my buyer rep contract.
So you visit the same home twice, potentially?
What's that?
You visit the same home twice, once as
Yeah.
a preview and then once with the,
Yeah, but it saves you time. I mean, if your people are looking at stuff after 5 o'clock or after 6 o'clock, and you've got 5 on their list, you can preview all of them in less than an hour, and say, you know what, we really only need to see 2. So you're cutting down on your time, and they'll appreciate it. Keeping you informed of new homes on the market, that's obvious. Advising you what other homes sold for, that's critical. And working with you until we find the home of your dreams, well, naturally. That's what you're doing. And then in here, page 31 and 32, is steps to home buying. 1, 2, 3, and 4 are great. 5 and 6, be really careful because this is where the American stuff comes in. Get inspection and negotiate repairs. That is standard in most US states. You do your home inspection and then you provide the seller with a list. You're smiling, Jillian. Have you had this experience?
No, I just wish this existed in Toronto.
Yeah, it would be nice, it would be simple. So in a lot of the US, a lot of states, the inspection puts together a document that the seller has to comply with, and if they don't, they're the ones that say, okay, the deal is done. Whereas here, our home inspections are not meant as a way to get out of the deal, or for the seller to have a laundry list of things that need to be fixed. It's possible, hey, we didn't know that the roof was leaking, we're gonna need a new roof, are you gonna share half the cost with us? That's possible. Or whatever, something like that that you can actually go back to the seller with. But it's very, very different. So make sure that you don't train your buyers that they can do that. And that's also important to talk about at buyer consultation. We will do a home inspection, but keep in mind is it's for major structural defects. Most of the things we'll be able to see up front. The home inspector will go a little bit more in depth and do a more thorough analysis for you. But if we know that the house has knob and tube wiring, because we can see it in the basement, we can't go back to the owner and say, well, you have knob and tube wiring. I want either money off the price or you fix it, because you should have known that up front. And final review of contract and close. Yes, but that's mostly done with the lawyer. And contrary to the process down in the States, we don't come to closings with our buyers. Whereas in the US, they all get together in one room and they do all the signing together and they exchange the keys. We're not as involved in that, fortunately. It's very, very time consuming. But you want to be there the day before closing. We have a checklist, so 2 weeks before closing, a week before closing, and a day or 2 before closing, we always call our buyers. We also call the lawyers. So whatever our side of the lawyer is. So if it's our buyer, we'll call the buyer's lawyer. If it's our listing, we'll call the seller's lawyer. Is everything okay? Has anything come up? You want to be on top of it. Because if there's an issue, you want to be the one to be able to tell your client about it, especially if it's a buyer. If they don't know upfront.
Have you ever had anything go sideways?
Oh yeah.
God.
Oh yeah. Actually, just 2 weeks ago, on a closing, it happened on Friday, but 10 days before, the buyers had a revisit, and the revisit turned into an interrogation by the buyer of my seller. I didn't know what was happening. It was supposed to happen the next day. That's what it was confirmed for, and it happened at like 4 o'clock, like today. And the seller called and said, oh my God, this agent came and the buyer, she's freaking out because there's aluminum wiring and she wanted money off the price or she wanted us to replace it. And like, I spent an hour talking to her about this, that, and the other, and I'm saying like, oh my God. And I called the agent and he was like, I didn't start yelling at him, but I said like, what's up, and was this as bad as my client made it sound? He said, no, but let me tell you what I've been working with for the last 2 weeks. So the buyer all of a sudden decided that the aluminum wiring that was always there, that was there the morning that she made the offer. It was in the inspection that was sent to her, and it was still in the inspection report that was sent to her because the link had expired and it was sent to her the week after. She had gone through 3 different lawyers, because I guess the first one said, like, I'm not doing anything like this. And the second lawyer called the buyer's agent, said we want money off the price because of the aluminum wiring, and the agent said no. The wiring was always there. It was there the morning that she did the offer, and he went through all that stuff, and then she switched lawyers again, and there was this like back and forth, and then they wanted an extension on closing, and we just kept saying no, 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 no. And they closed. But the thing is, you have to be able, if you're not in a position to have the knowledge yet, because you haven't been around, to put your foot down, you have to have somebody beside you, like your broker of record or your mentor or whoever, to help guide you through that process. Summer of 2017, we were lucky. We did not have any deals fall apart, but it was, everybody bought high in the spring, and come, late spring, summer, there were all kinds of issues with, houses not appraising out, buyers now, foreign buyers not wanting to pay the 50% tax. There was all kinds of closing issues. And yeah, that was a stressful year. That was a very stressful year. But yeah, there's always potential issues that come up. Again, just referencing the US, the problem with their system, and honest, I don't know how they do this, because they're essentially conditional until the day of closing. And during that process, anything can happen. They can walk away if they feel like it. They can walk away if they don't like plumbing, wiring, whatever. They can walk away if the wind blows in the other direction. If the bank doesn't appraise the property for its value, they can open up negotiations. Right up until.
And that's just a regular contract. Like, are there conditions in place, or this is just?
This is the pending process. Each state is a little bit different, but the overall picture is they are on pins and needles until closing. Whereas for us, for the most part, when a deal is done, a deal is done. There's some little, things, little glitches that can happen, but you have to understand that in Ontario, a contract's a contract. And if you back out as a buyer, you don't automatically lose your deposit, but you are at risk of losing your deposit and you're at risk of being sued. Whereas it's very different over there. Anybody can get out. So you have to understand it. You have to know that. You have to know that the seller here in Ontario is in control. And you could say, no, you're not getting an extension on closing. And no, go away. You're not getting any money off the price because you agreed on the price a month ago, and that's what you're paying. I don't care if the bank didn't appraise it. You need to pay the price that's on the contract, as opposed to what the bank said the house is worth.
Rumor has it that the provincial government is looking at making it more so that the buyer has some control as well. They're changing the REBA rules and rights.
Well, they're looking to make the offer process a bit more transparent. Yes, so that.
Is there any downside to that?
I think it's a little bit easier on buyers. I think the potential downside is sellers may not get a crazy price like they would have if the buyer was going to pay way more than the next offer under them. But a lot of multiple offers, like you don't have somebody paying $50,000 or $100,000 over the next guy. A lot of times you have people sort of clustered at the top, and it's a closer, it's a closer race. But
It'll be interesting.
I have no idea how long it's going to take. Is that what you were referring to?
Yeah.
Has that gone through?
No. I mean, they have to change the whole Real Estate Business Brokers Act. It's not just us, not just realtors, right? So it's a bigger process than that. It seems to work in Australia.
It seems to make sense from like an intellectual perspective. Like, then you know what I think this is worth, and I'm willing to pay what I think it's worth, and everyone else is going to pay what they think it's worth. Because I've been blind in multiple offers as a buyer, and it is stressful.
Of course.
Like especially if you're trying to get a good deal on a property. Am I going to be overpaying by 20 or 30 or who knows, right?
You're not overpaying.
That's right. That's right.
A good.
Sorry, I meant overbidding the other bids.
So when you're heading with your buyer into a multiple offer situation, and they say, well, how will I know if I'm paying too much, and I say, you won't ever know.
Mhm.
You have to pick a price that you're comfortable with, and if somebody pays $1,000 more than that, you won't be upset because you've paid what you want.
Right. So there's been times where, there's twice that I've been in multiple offers and got the property, and then, you know, the next week or something, the agent that I use would say like, oh, you know what, it was very close between you and another offer. They're just telling me that, right?
You know
To
what,
make me feel better.
it really depends. I mean, yeah, they might be. It really depends on the listing agent.
If they divulge anything.
Yeah, and they're not allowed to,
Right.
and, you know, they shouldn't. And sometimes it is really close. I mean, sometimes you have offers that are virtually identical.
Mhm.
And it's really hard to make a decision as a listing agent, because who do you pick,
Mhm.
right? And then they improve and they come back even closer. So it happens.
Right.
But yeah, sometimes, and it has to not matter. You have to say, okay, because if you're having this conversation, say, okay, so let's pretend you got the house, and a week from now, you're sitting in a coffee shop, and you happen to overhear that somebody else bid on that house, and they're talking numbers, and they say a number that was $50,000 less than what you paid. You have to be okay with that. Right? Because you're buying the house, you got the house, you're gonna live there, and you're not thinking of selling it in the next 6 months. So you need to pick a price that you're gonna be happy with, and if you get it, great, and if you don't, there's always another house. That's the best thing about real estate, is there's always another house. But if they love it, and it's their dream house, and they're gonna be there for 20 years, it's okay to pay a little bit more, because you're not gonna remember an extra $10,000 or $20,000, but you're gonna remember that you have this great house that you live in and love, right? And that's the difference, it's all in the perspective. Right? And if somebody's just focused on the dollars, then that's gonna be a harder, it's gonna be a harder sale, it's gonna be a harder nut for you to crack, because that's emotional, right? Or that's logical versus emotional. And, you know, logic makes them think, emotion makes them act, right? Right? And if they're going to be living there, if it's going to be their principal residence, then they have to focus on what's going to be most important to them. Because, you know, it doesn't matter if you're paying $810 or $790, or does it matter that you're paying about $800,000?
Right.
Right? And that's, right? Like seriously, like on this purchase, and, you know, with us in Toronto, where, you know, in some cases we're fortunate, the realtors are fortunate because our price points are pretty high. Buyers, you know, they have a lot of money to spend. So I had this fight with a lawyer buyer of ours because she kept insisting on wanting to offer on a place that I thought was horrible for her. And it wasn't even, like, it was technically in Rosedale, but it was on the outskirts. It was like right at Bloor and Sherbourne. And we saw it and we nixed it, and she called me the next week and said, well, because it was, I don't know, it was like, this is 1.5 or something. And she said, well, what if I get it for, you know, $1,450? I said, so what? It's not going to change where it is. It's not going to change the fact that it has no outdoor space. It's not going to change the fact that it's not the right place for you. So what does it matter if you're saving $50,000 if you're spending $1.4 million? Like, what if you save $100,000? It's still $1.4 million, right? And I took her back. I said, okay, let's just go. Let's just go back. And we walked through it again. She said, okay, you're right. Like, I'm not going to sell a place just to sell a place because I want somebody happy, right? And it's better for you to talk somebody out of something if it's not right for them, but also if it is the right place for them, put things in perspective so they're not worried about the $10,000, $20,000, or even $50,000, as long as they can afford it, right? You've got to figure that out. Have them focus on the bigger picture as opposed to, oh, another $10,000 or $20,000, right? Because this is their lives, and it's a whole ton of money,
Oh, yeah.
right? Funding your home purchase, closing costs also. Keep in mind that our closing costs are different here than they are in the US. Page 37, we don't ever have sellers cover closing costs. So just sort of in the middle, ask sellers to cover closing costs. No, we don't do that. And ask sellers to help roll the costs into the loan. We don't do that either. Buyers always have to come up with their down payment, their land transfer taxes, the rest of their closing costs, and the lawyer's fees. If they borrow that from somebody else, okay, that's fine, but we can't have those rolled into our loans, and the sellers will never pay them. So just make sure you don't promise people that.
Also, page 34, we don't have title companies. So process of funding, just get the gist of that, but keep in mind, so again, you know, in here, most home loans require an upfront down payment between 3.5% and 10%. We don't have 3.5% down payments. We barely even have 5% down payments now, right? Because 5% is only on the first 500,000. Does everybody know that? Okay, and so Karen, you can get, so right now, we can't go in with 5% on everything. It's 5% of the first $500,000 and then 10% of the balance. Okay, so you have to know that. And closing cost anywhere from 2 to 5%, yeah, that's about right. That's about right. Page 35, making an offer. That's also good step by step. Familiarize yourself with that. And closing, again, make sure that you're following Ontario closing process as opposed to American. This is great. Page 38, frequently asked questions. And this is something that you can actually put into your buyer package. How will you let me know about what's available? How will you inform me? Or will you inform me of other companies or other companies' listings? Of course. I'm not going to be showing you just Halloween listings. That would be ridiculous. Can you help me find new construction? And that's going to be something close to your heart. When you said new development, is that what you meant? Did you mean new construction properties? Yeah. Have you done any of those recently?
I've got 2 or 3 people who are, that they're interested, but I think it's also because we did a couple of our own, and so, you know, when you've been through something, it's much easier to get the advice from it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because new construction is a different animal, right? I'm going to pick things up a little bit because I do want to cover the scripts. Okay, we're going to be okay on time. How do for sale by owners work? That's something that you need to know as well, because the majority of our FSBOs are online, whether it's Purple Bricks now, Purple Bricks, or Property Guys. I mean, there's always companies that try and do something that's discount. They never last. They've been around since real estate has been around.
Is FSBO also, is Purple Bricks considered FSBO? Because they do have realtors coming in and...
So they bought out
Comfrey.
Comfrey. Yeah, so I don't know exactly how it's working
Is
now.
Comfrey assign an agent to their listings, or?
I don't know. I don't know. But you know what? It doesn't matter whether it's Purple Bricks, Comfrey, Property Guys. Savvy Realty was big in the 80s and 90s. They tried to do discount. Our model, our market does not sustain a discount model, because anybody that has short-term success with it cannot last long-term in our market. So it's up to you to show. I mean, especially with the buyer, like they think they can go in without an agent and save the 2.5% that you're supposed to be making, but you're not. If you pay 4% more for the house than you would have with a good agent, then you're not making money, you're losing it. It's the same as with sellers who list with a discount brokerage. My husband Philip just pulled up one, just I think in the last couple of days, where it was, I think they moved over to Purple Bricks or whatever it was, and they dropped the price they dropped their list price by $25,000, and they sold for like another $50,000 less than that. So they saved 2.5%, but they lost like $80,000. So how is that a savings, right? So it's up to you. It's great if you can find one of those examples, right? And actually have a hard copy or something like that. But it's up to you to prove your value, to help them understand how the market works, help them understand that them working on their own does not mean they're going to save money. And if you put together a good proposal and show them that, and they still don't want to work with you, then just move on. Regenerate, find other buyers. Right?
Do you go after FSBOs?
No, because most of them are already online. Right, so they're under contract, they're technically under contract. If there's like a little hand-painted sign that I drive by, will I stop and knock on the door? Absolutely. There's not many of those anymore.
And most of the time, if it's something like that, they don't really want to sell. They're just testing the waters. But sure, if there's a little one that I drive by, I'll stop. Especially if it's in my farm, but most people don't. Most people that think they can do it on their own will hire one of the discounters because they believe that just by going on MLS, they're going to get the same price that they would with a good realtor. And that's just not true. We actually put that in our seller's package. You know, who gets paid or who pays what, how does it work, and what's the value of a realtor. Because what's the point of saving 1 or 2% if you sell your house for 10% less? Because that's possible too. You're not saving, you're losing. About me, so this is the a different version of the home buyer's guide that I passed out to you. Put some stuff in about you if you're really new and you don't have a ton of stuff to talk about your experience. Just use your brokerage. You know, you're with Keller Williams, local experience, global brand. Page 41, actually there's a good little section here on Keller Williams, so you can pick that and augment your own material with that. Oh, it's too bad that I can't get that video up. So the video on KW Connect on wants and needs is really good because it's not just important to ask a question, but it's important to ask why is that important. So in the video, they use an example of somebody says they want a nice yard. Great, why is that important to you? Because I like to garden. Awesome, what's important about gardening to you? Well, it helps me relax. That's good to know. So what about being relaxed in your garden helps you with the rest of your life? Well, that I can spend more quality time with my family if I'm relaxed, right? Bingo. So they're not talking about just the yard, they're talking about how it's going to relate to the rest of your lives, right? I have a dog. It's really important for the dog to be running around. Great. You know, just several layers deep will help you really understand people. Because then when they start hemming and hawing about something that you know they shouldn't be hemming and hawing about, you can bring them back to, okay, so remember at the buyer consultation when we're talking about why this is important? Well, this is going to help you get more quality time for your family. Isn't that worth your time? Isn't that worth this house? So you can always bring it back to what's most important for them. Because if somebody says, I need 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a garage, doesn't everybody? Right? You need to figure out. So if we got a nice 2-bedroom with a bedroom in the basement where you could put the office, could that work for you? Oh yeah, no problem. Right? And you wouldn't have known that if you didn't ask anything after they said 3-bedroom, 2 bath, whatever it is. It's always digging. So those scripts, page 41 to 44, make sure you read those. They're really, really good, and they're short. That's the important part. If a script is short, you can internalize it and use it, right? Who here is doing some script practicing? Is anybody? Kind of, sort of, what does that mean?
Yeah, kind of, sort of. I use my 30 scripts,
Mm-hmm.
and I choose a script every week, and I just write it down every morning.
Are you using any of the KW scripts?
No,
No?
I haven't looked into them.
There's lots of them.
I think a lot of them are similar to what Mike Ferry has to.
Yeah.
So I don't know who's borrowing from who, but I know that they're both good friends, Gary Keller and
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as long as you do something. The whole point about scripting is making sure that you use the right words and then make them your own, so that they don't sound like scripts. Right, Joe?
That's right.
Yeah? Are you doing your scripts?
I'm doing scripts. I'm in the office here.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
That's good. The whole point about scripts is internalizing them so they don't sound like scripts. So that they just sound like they roll off your tongue. Like stuff I say to you that I can't repeat again because it's not a script anymore. So the needs analysis. There's a lot of stuff here that's really, really good. Never assume. That's so important because we really do have a tendency to assume things and jump to conclusions. That's why asking more and more questions will help you really understand, because just because somebody says something doesn't mean you really understand it. So ask more questions, because what you think they're saying might not be the case. And you really have to figure out exactly what they're saying. Listen and take notes for sure. You'll never remember. You'll never ever remember. So we actually have in our buyer file, We have a list of questions that we ask. Most of the time, we will ask every single one. Sometimes there might be one or two, like if they don't have kids or they're not planning kids, we're not gonna ask them about schools, obviously, right? But having that in front of us so that we can take notes always ensures that we get all the information. Being specific, that's also important because it sort of falls in with the assumption. Make sure that you really, really understand what they're saying. Ask what else, you know? What else? What else is important about that? Tell me more. Ask about household, not family. I think they want to make sure they're not violating any human rights issues. And make it a dialogue. You know, the buyer consultation also gives you an opportunity to build the rapport because it's not automatic that the buyer consult will lead to you guys working together. So when I'm booking a buyer consultation, I say, well, it'll give you a chance to talk to us and see if we're the kind of team that you want to be working with. And it'll give us a chance to get to know you a little bit better and see if we want to take you on as clients. And they're like, oh, what? Yeah, because we might not be the right fit, right? So at the consultation, we always talk about the buyer representation agreement. We go through it, I give them the plain language forms, and then say, you know what, we're going to test run each other for a week or so. See how we do. If we like each other, then you're going to be signing the contract.
Curious. So I'm looking at this. Why do you ask for their office address and ask if people at work know your buying house?
So we always ask for the office address because we want to send them stuff. We want to send them as soon as we start working with them, we send them mugs. This is something we've been working on. We've been thinking about for 3 years. We're finally doing it, so we send them mugs to the office. Thank you for starting on your journey of working with us. You know, flowers, chocolates, whatever. We might want to send them photo albums of their house because we always want to send as much as we possibly can to their work because we want their co-workers to know what they're doing and what their agents are doing for them. But if they're keeping it a secret, you don't want to be starting to do that, right? If we ever need to send you anything that relates to your house purchase to your office, is that okay? Right? Most people are fine with it. Some people, if they're really, really private, they don't want anybody to know. So you don't want to start doing all that great stuff and wreck it. Because you never know when something might lose your client. Okay, so that buyer needs analysis. See if you can find it. Going deep, we talked about that. The other great thing about having everything in writing is when they start veering off, like they sometimes do, you can bring them back to what we talked about when we met was X. Now you're telling me Y. Should we adjust what you told me? Because that's perfectly fine. It's entirely up to you. This is your house purchase. If you want to change what you told me, that's perfectly fine. But you need to let us know. You need to let us know so we can just adjust our search. Sometimes they might say, oh, you know what, no, forget it. You're right, let's just stick to the program, right? Because that's also, that can save you on showing time. You are looking for a condo, you said you did not want to see anything without a balcony. This does not have a balcony, do you still want to see it?
Kind of on that note, maybe they don't really know what they want.
That's right.
Maybe they don't know that they need a balcony. So I guess at that point then you'd address with like conversations with them.
Well, you ask as many questions as you can up front, but then say, you know what, this is a guide. Like you might think of other things as we start looking. You might not realize that there was something that was really important to you that you didn't tell me about. Or you might realize that what you told me was really important isn't really that important. So it's perfectly fine to adjust. We're doing this for you, right? But just make sure you keep asking the questions and ask when they happen so that you don't go down a rabbit hole with them and waste your time and their time. Because sometimes they don't know. They don't know, and it's your job to read in between the lines and guide them in their future decisions.
Do you think it's easier in your position to have a buyer who's very specific with what they want or more broad and they don't?
They come in all shapes, sizes. Sometimes the husband and wife want different houses, right? That's fun, right? Sometimes you have one that won't make a decision without the other. Sometimes one thinks they're gonna make a decision for the other, and the other one says, oh no. Sometimes you have spouses that are totally in line with each other. They say, oh yeah, he doesn't even need to see it, if I like it, we'll buy it, right, which is awesome. Which is a lot better than husband and wife looking for different houses. That's a challenge, for sure. Included needs analysis. That's something also that I would suggest to you, that you actually role play, even if it's just with yourself, just asking the questions, because you have to be comfortable, right? In addition to how much of your savings do you want to put towards a down payment, when it gets to the financial discussion, sometimes it's hard, and you have to be comfortable with it. And they have to be comfortable enough with you to disclose those answers to you. And if they don't want to, you have to know how to get that information from them. We're going to be working very closely together. This will be, if not the biggest financial transaction of your life, it'll be pretty close to it. And I'm here to guide you through it. So I need to have you be open with me about how your finances will work. Because the last thing I want to do is find you a house that you love, and then we're not in a position to buy it for you. It's very rare that somebody comes to a buyer consultation and they won't talk about their finances, because if they're committed enough to actually meet with you, they'll be committed enough to give you all the details. But if they don't, you have to kind of know what questions to ask to get that out of them. And if it's a big transaction, like once you get into the upper millions, it's perfectly okay to ask for a letter of authorization from their lender. And if they balk, say, you know what, most of these houses that we're going to be looking at will ask for that pre-qualification before we can even show the house, because they don't want tire kickers in their house. Yeah. Analysis. What's ahead? This just talks about how you're going to organize the showings. Oh, one of the things that we do also after the buyer consult is we ask them, because if they're not on Collab, they're just going to be on a prospect match. So we ask them if they want the auto email, and then we flag the best properties for them, or if they just want to see the properties that meet their needs best. Because some people want all of the information and then just have our input on what's best for them. Some people say, I don't want to see all of it. I've told you what I wanted. Go find it for me. I don't care if it's only one house a week. But you also want to find that out in advance, right? You want to know how they want to be communicated with. You want to find out what's important to them and what they expect from you. Because some people will want a ton of stuff from you and others won't, right? Others are like, just give me, it's the same as sellers. Some sellers want to know every single thing that you're doing to market their property every single day. And others are like, I hired you, you do the job, you just tell me when we have an offer and make sure it's good, right? And it's going to be with different components. It's going to be the same with buyers. Okay. And then you guys are supposed to do a buyer consultation between you, but we don't have time for that. Certainly, if you're just starting and you can sit in on somebody with their buyer consult, Randy, that would help. Jillian, you too, once you get licensed. Ask around, somebody you can sit in with, and just make sure that you stick to that. It's a little hard when you first start because you don't have the confidence, but having more of those experiences, even if they're not yours, just sort of sitting and watching over somebody's shoulder as they do it, it's going to help you in the long run. Anything we haven't covered, guys, that you have a burning question about?
Awesome.
If you think of anything, Oresta has my email. You can just shoot me a message. Cool.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for coming. I'm going to grab this back.
Yeah,
And go do your calls. This is about doing, not just learning. Hey, Oresta. Hi, everyone.
Always on time for us today.
I know, right? Like, I enjoyed your presentation thoroughly, Irene, even though I wasn't present. Absolutely.